Hello, good evening, good morning, good whenever time you're watching this video. It has been a hot second. I think maybe a month, 2 months since I've made any sort of Master Duel content. And what better video to bring about than the death of Master Duel? That's right. Let's just be super dramatic about it. But no, for real. I mean, listen, we're about 1 year out since the game launched. The game launched sometime in January, I think mid-January, if memory serves correctly, somewhere in that time frame. And I thought it would be a pretty good time to just sit back and 1 year review of Master Duel. How did the game go from probably the most hyped Yu-Gi-Oh product to, let's be honest, a product that has pretty much failed across the board. It is making record low number of sales in terms of money. It's making it has record low number of players, and there doesn't really seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And I kind of wanted to talk about that here a little bit and give my opinion on the whole thing. Now, Master Duel, as we all know, came out as an extremely hyped game. I don't want people to, take me out of context or anything, or, try to play the historian game, revise history and say, oh, Master Duel was always terrible from the very beginning, or no one ever wanted this game. The typical arguments people tend to make. So I do have a few things I kind of want to go over. One of the first things I want to go over is the Steam charts. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this, at this point. And I kind of want to go over it and put my spin on it, because here's the thing, right? Most people are playing this game either on Steam or their console. You're not going to find a whole bunch of people playing this game on mobile phone, something like Duel Links, where Duel Links tends to be mostly platformed on phone games. You're going to find this game mostly on Steam. We know this because if you go to sensortower.com and look up how much money Master Duel makes, it's currently making significantly less than Duel Links does. So while we can't necessarily see how many Apple players there are, we can see how many Android players there are, and we can see how much money Master Duel in general makes. And it's just a known fact, if you look at all that information and use common sense, that most of the player base is going to be on Steam. And that is concerning, because you can see here, the first 3 months of Master Duel were pretty damn good. We had a peak player base of 262,000 players. I don't think any other Yu-Gi-Oh game has ever had that many players. There were, if you looked at YouTube specifically, there were content creators that you didn't even realize they played Yu-Gi-Oh! And they were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! En masse during the release of Master Duel. And they've all pretty much quit within the first 3 months. Ever since then, it has been pretty much a downward spiral. You can pretty much see the only time it ever really went up was in May. Where we started getting a little bit of consistent updates, but for the most part has been trending downwards and continues to trend downwards as the year progresses. Going into the final year of the year, I don't think this is going to turn around. Obviously, there is the 1 year anniversary in January where there's hope, but for the most part, the game has been trending down since it's come out, and doesn't look like it's going to be changing anytime soon. Of course, the game itself, while recently it started doing the monthly ban lists, has gotten a little bit more expensive with the URs coming out, more URs per box or per archetypes, etc., etc., etc. So it looks pretty gloomy for Master Duel, but we cannot forget that the game did start out fantastically and had a lot of potential. Now let's talk about the problems. Where did it all go wrong? From the beginning, I think from the beginning it went wrong. There was not a lot of content on release, and for a live service game, you definitely didn't feel the need to spend your money on Master Duel, right? It felt like a waste of money. You could always make new accounts. The events that they gave you gave so many free gems. It just never felt like it was worth spending your money on this game, because realistically, at the end of the day, you just duel, right? Think of any of your popular favorite card games, simulators, online simulators, right? Magic Gathering, Hearthstone, whatever. There are other things to do outside of just the main ranked mode. Even though that might be the go-to mode, there's other things that you can do in the game. And Master Duel never really had that. Master Duel has always just been, touted as the go-to competitive form of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is going to be the esport Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, is what Konami's exact words were when it comes to this game. And the simple truth is, Master Duel has never been that. Master Duel, in its current form, is the casual game that you play if you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's the cheapest option, and it's the option where no matter how good you are at this game, you will not go to Worlds when it comes to Master Duel. It is a video game that you play because it's super cheap and it's a very accessible way to learn TCG. And once you've learned TCG, you either move on to TCG or realize I don't really like the TCG format, so you play something else like Duel Links, both of which are ways you can earn a lot of money as a professional player and go to Worlds and get sponsors, etc., etc., etc. You cannot do any of that in Master Duel. So what they intended, right? The intention from the beginning was Master Duel, big competitive esport, sweaty game, Duel Links, the casual, friendly anime game, and they've essentially ended up swapping those two, and kind of being their, the opposites of each other. On top of that, yeah, no draft modes, no arena modes. The solo mode was quite honestly a flop. When I originally heard of the solo mode, I thought it would be a little bit more to it, maybe voice acted, maybe some anime cutscenes in between. And, just if you've ever played any card game that had like a solo mode, there was always some pizzazz to it, some flash to it, right? Where, to kind of break up the monotony of PvP. And none of that was really present in the Master Duel. So from the get-go, the game always felt like it was empty, on the empty side. And we always said, oh, next month for sure is when the content will come out. That's when the content will come out. That's when the content will come out. And as the months progressed, we got cards. That was our content, cards. But I feel like Master Duel, because here's the thing, right? I actually feel like the current metagame isn't even that terrible. I'll be straight up honest. I think what they're doing right now with the metagame isn't even that awful, especially with the whole idea of the monthly ban list. I think that's an amazing idea for Master Duel to try and break out and be its own thing. Because here's the thing, right? Whenever a new set comes out, it's never exciting. It's never exciting in Master Duel because we know what the meta is going to be, because these are all technically old cards from TCG and OCG. And it doesn't have the benefit that Duel Links has, where it's a different format completely, right? In Duel Links, if you're not a Duel Links player, you don't have a main phase 2, lower life points, blah, 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 blah. So every box that comes out, you don't know if the box is going to be good. You have a bunch of people on Reddit saying it's terrible, a bunch of people on Twitch saying it's great, a bunch of people on YouTube saying in between, but no one truly knows until the tournaments happen, until the people go on ladder and upload their data to Duel Links meta, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Correct? So it's one of those things where whenever new boxes come around, that uncertainty is hype as hell, and it's super fun to kind of play with that in the game. In Master Duel, because all these cards are old and it's the same exact format as those other formats, yes, we have our unique ban list, but in all honesty, the hits to the cards that we have in Master Duel are so insignificant because of how the ban list works in the official format. It doesn't matter. The format essentially ends up the same, or similar decks that were in that format. If they were like a tier 3 deck, maybe they're a tier 2 deck in Master Duel. It's not that different, right? So we know if a new archetype comes up, if it's going to be any good, and that takes all the fun out of figuring it out for ourselves when it comes to tournament games or DC Cup games, etc., etc. And we'll talk about DC Cup in a bit. So that's a pretty downside, a sucky part. And I said a long time ago, a way they could really fix that, I even might have said this in February when the game was, starting to feel that lack of content, where I said that, yeah, new cards aren't going to make this game fun, because we already know what's going to happen with the new cards. What's going to make this game fun is more ban lists more often. If they're able to do that, they would make the game more interesting. They have done that, but their ban lists are weak. Their ban lists don't actually change as much as I think they want to change, and doesn't really shake up the meta as often as you'd like. At most, they'll delete like one oppressive deck from the metagame, and that's usually it, or significantly nerf it. So Florindese, for example, you don't really see many Florindese players anymore in tournaments because of the previous ban list that we had in Master Duel. I think more significant hits on the ban list, or even ones that are, just completely out of left field is how Master Duel could be interesting, right? How about you just come in and ban Max C for a format and specifically say this ban is for a format to see how things go? Like, if you're going to do monthly ban lists, why not get really crazy with it and really force, new cards to come in and be played? I think that's the way to go about it. The other thing, too, when it comes to the ban list, I said it on stream a couple days ago, but I truly, truly, truly believe after playing both games that the Duel Links ban list system is the way to go in Master Duel. And I know that's not a popular opinion amongst Master Duelists, but hear me out before you click off the video, okay? I'll try to be quick. I know the video's already gone on a little long here, but try to understand here and try not to take this out of context. So the Duel Links ban list, the way it works is we have a limit 1, limit 2, limit 3, and a forbidden section. Forbidden is the same. You just can't play those cards. They're straight up banned. Limit 1 means whatever cards are in the limit 1 pool, you can only play one of those cards. So if Graceful Charity is limit 1 and Pot of Greed is limit 1, you can play one of those two cards. But that's it. You can't play one Graceful, one Pot of Greed. You can only pick one of those cards, and that's the only one that can be in your deck. Same for 2, same for 3. Now, the argument, whenever I bring this up, that I prefer that system more is there are too many cards in Master Duel and too many strategies in Master Duel that this simply would not work, which is not true. There are 12, 13, 15,000, I don't know how many fucking thousands of cards in Master Duel, but how many of them are viable at any given point at a competitive level? And we don't have to even look at official tournaments. How many of those decks or cards are viable on a Diamond 1 level? According to Master Duel meta, according to our personal tournaments that we run, not very many. Less than 500 cards at any given point are actually viable in the game. So it would not be very difficult to create a ban list because we wouldn't be banning those 12,000 cards that are not viable. We would be banning within that 500 card pool of cards that are making the game unfun to play. And on top of that, if you're doing monthly ban lists, which is what Master Duel should do because that is the one thing they can do at being a digital game. And here's the thing too, people are like, well, why do you need monthly ban lists? Why do you need to do that, Rye? Well, it's very simple, right? You play a lot more Master Duel than you do the physical card game. TCG, OCG, you make a day out of it. You know, on the weekends, you go drive to your locals, you play Duel, I was about to say Duel Links. I guess you could play Duel Links, but you play Yu-Gi-Oh! For a couple hours, then you go home. Or you go enter a live tournament, play for a couple days in a row, and then you go home. My point is, you're not going to wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, can't go to bed, boot up your phone, play, a game of TCG, and then go back to bed, where that is something you can do in Master Duel. You could play it while taking a shit on the toilet. You can play it in the middle of the night. You can play it in the morning. You're playing a lot more Yu-Gi-Oh! When you're committing yourself to something like Master Duel. More average Yu-Gi-Oh! Than you would if you went to locals or something like that. Which is the big kind of disparity when we're talking about like the ban list and stuff. So when you have less games overall, the game is still fresher to you when you're going in between game to game to game to game. Yu-Gi-Oh!, like every card game, this is not something unique to Yu-Gi-Oh! This is every card game. Every card game gets super, super, super crunchy, super stale if you're not constantly updating it, if you're not giving it new cards, new ban lists, etc., 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 etc. Master Duel, the best way it can kind of keep that going is every month you release a nice new ban list, and I think that ban list has to be impactful every single month to keep it interesting. Duel Links gets a new box every month, and that's what keeps it interesting. Without the new box, the interest in Duel Links also goes down, just like every other card game. So, I personally believe the ban list would be super interesting because here's the thing, right? If a deck is too good to play Despia or too good to play whatever fusion archetype, right? if you kept those strong, powerful cards for the weaker decks, those weaker decks can still perform against strong decks. It sucks to see a ban list comes out in Master Duel, and if it's like a generic card getting hit to limit 1, okay, that's annoying. If any card's getting hit to limit 2, that literally does nothing in the game. And then for extra deck monsters, most extra deck monsters only see 1 copy anyway in an extra deck. So unless that extra deck monster straight up gets banned, it doesn't matter if it gets limit 1, limit 2, or limit 3. It just doesn't matter, right? Unless that extra deck monster is banned, it has no impact. So if you have a very powerful, let's say Needle Fiber, for example, right? We can all agree Needle Fiber is an insane card. Hulk, whatever you want to call it, the Crystron card, right? That doesn't get played in Crystrons. A lot of decks are able to abuse that card. Isolde, whatever Xyz monster, right? Or I'm sorry, Link monster. Here's the thing. Imagine those cards being viable and playable for like a new archetype or an archetype that is severely underpowered, like Scarecrow or, Evil Twin or whatever. Imagine those decks can actually play these cards because they're underpowered and cannot be, they can't do anything, right? But you can't play it in, Sword Soul. You can't play your Needle Fiber in Sword Soul. That would make it more interesting metagame and just have more cards available to be played rather than, like 3 or 4 decks are abusing this card, and every new archetype we bring out is abusing this card. So just ban it. Just get rid of it. Outright get rid of it, I feel like that is going to be super stale. And I really, really, really believe that the Duel Links ban list system would make Master Duel way more interesting to play and retain more player numbers. At the very least, it wouldn't look as bad. I mean, look at that red, right? We're down to the average 15,000 player base. That is extremely low, and the worst part is there's no signs of stopping. It is continuously going down. It is not stopping at all. There's no like hope of it rising back up. It's just continuously going down. And that is the greatest aspect that is scary to me when it comes to Master Duel. Outside of the ban list, talking about other non-ban list related things, there's of course the DC Cup. We've had 2, by December we'll have 2 DC Cups that happened this year. It is very obvious that, Konami had no idea what direction they wanted to take the game when it comes to esports. Or competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever you want to call it. I don't think you can call it an esport at this point. I think the game's flopped too hard, but let's just call it a competitive game. Let's just get to the point where it's competitive. Duelist Cup they have not released any information about Duelist Cup being like, a way to get to Worlds or getting any sort of real prizes out of it. And of course, the whole cheating allegations and everything that happened around Duelist Cup. There are leaks now apparently that they have turned off crossplay. We'll see as we get closer to December. But I truly do believe that the KC Cup style that they use in Duel Links is such a horrid system already in Duel Links. Why would you copy that back into Master Duel? Master Duel needs to put its foot down right now and determine what type of competitive game it needs to be, because the community is still to this day confused. There are people in the community who say best of 1 is the way to play. And they have a very valid point. Everything in game is best of 1, right? Best of 1 ranked ladder, best of 1 Duelist Cup. So they're well within their right to say that the game should be balanced around best of 1. Here's the thing though, Yu-Gi-Oh is a almost 21-year-old game at this point that has always been balanced around best of 3 in mind. Like that's just how these the ban lists and the cards in the freaking game work, right? Like that's just how it always has been. So unless Konami comes out and officially makes, a true competitive mode, either Duelist Cup or an ELO system or whatever, and this is like their official way of doing the game is best of 1. We intend the game to be best of 1. I would be 100% fine with that. I don't care if it's best of 1, best of 3. Obviously, the competitive side of me says I always want it to be best of 3, but I don't give a shit at this point. I just don't like the indecisiveness that they have when it comes to the game. And because of that indecisiveness, we're now in kind of this in-between way where, community tournaments are doing best of 3, the in-game ranked mode is best of 1, but we haven't seen what the true official, because I can tell you what the true official Duel Links competitive mode is. It's best of 3 with several different decks, right? But I can't tell you what Master Duel intends to do because they just simply have not done that yet. And there are several issues that you have to take into consideration when you're talking about that as well. The time The time to play a best of 3 is so long in Master Duel. Because it's just kind of formatted from TCG and OCG, and TCG and OCG just have a bunch of time rules that, have to have a physical person there to look at and figure out, what they want to do with that. So they have to figure out better time rulings other than just cut the timer in half so combo decks will always be low on time. Right? There's just so many things that I'd like to see. And these aren't like crazy ideas that I'm coming up with either. If you play any of the old PSP Yu-Gi-Oh games, they all had best of 3 mode. They all had a side deck system that actually timed you in between, the actual how much time you had to side deck and whatnot. They all had the resources necessary to play tournaments, to play, locals with friends, etc. Whatever you needed to do to play a competitive match of Yu-Gi-Oh without needing outside moderator help to keep your game going. So these aren't crazy ideas that I'm coming up with. I'm just referencing what happened in old Yu-Gi-Oh games. Why don't we have a draft or arena system where you open a whole bunch of packs, make decks, and then try to win streak? What's going on there? Why on earth, when I got hyped about this 5v5 team battle mode, I came in here to try and check it out? Is it the most glitched thing I have ever seen in my life? We tried this on stream. I opened up my room and said anyone can come in and play, and it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare trying to get 5 people on your team. First of all, if you put the room code in here when you join a team and you don't press enter, there's no like enter button down at the bottom. So if you don't press enter on your keyboard, it'll just search you in for a random team, which was hilarious when it happened. When we actually got into the duel rooms, it took forever to find a match. I'm assuming because the mode is dead and because there's no rewards, you don't even get experience towards your freaking duel pass when you're doing the 5v5 mode. So there's literally zero reason to do it other than I just want to play 5v5, which is so dumb when it comes to live service games. There needs to be incentive. You couldn't give me like 50 free gems for playing it daily or something. And probably the reason it's like that is because the mode is broken. Whenever, so often when I dueled, people would just disconnect. And the worst part about it is when people disconnect, it doesn't give them a win or a loss. It just puts them in this endless limbo. So then if it's like if you're doing a 3v3, for example, and both sides have 2 wins, that's it. It's just that's it. There's no winner. It's a draw. And the game doesn't say draw. It just sits there forever, infinitely, until you leave. So the mode just flat out does not work. And I think that's the most frustrating part. I see them try. I see them put these festivals in, which, okay, the events, the festivals, that also has to change. That's not fun. It's not fun to just play normal Yu-Gi-Oh! And go up against True Draco or whatever stupid broken back row deck or hand trap deck is relevant at the time. Play normal Yu-Gi-Oh! But you can't synchro. Play normal Yu-Gi-Oh! But you can't link. Those are not exciting events, okay? You know what would be an interesting, fun event? Different formats. Give me different formats, Master Duel. What's the problem? You're a multi-billion-dollar company. Why don't you do this? Go in and say, okay, we're going to play the Teledad format. We're going to go back to that original Master Rule, tell the players what Master Rules actually are, and then go from there. I can't even do like an unlimited tournament where I play an old format, like GOAT format, because the Master Rules are different. The Master Rules being different makes a whole bunch of cards completely irrelevant, completely not fun to play, or just doesn't go with the spirit of the game. And it's not just like a tiny pool of cards. It's a lot, right? It's a lot of freaking cards that get affected by these Master Rule changes. So you can't even do that in Master Duel. And this is supposed to be like the ultimate Yu-Gi-Oh game. So why don't we have that? Why, like, instead of having all these Garbojo events where it's like you can't use your spell cards, you can't use link monsters for this event. You must use synchro monsters for this event. And even if you did want to play to the spirit of those events, who in their right mind would spend their gems on a deck that you would only use for the event And then after that week is over, that deck is useless in competitive Master Duel because that's the only thing you can do. You just click the Duel button up at the top. The point of these events is to gain you gems, right? If there was a way to rent better decks or even use the in-game points to have temporary cards, sure, I'd be more open to trying new strategies in these decks. But besides that, I'm just going to use the most basic ass deck I can find to farm out my gems and get out of there so I can play normal Yu-Gi-Oh, right? So I don't know. These are just a few of the things that bother me when it comes to the actual game of Master Duel. Is there anything that can be done? Of course, there's always things that can be done. I was asked, what is like this the first simplest trick that they could do to kind of get the game back on the right tracks, and I think working on formats, right? Working on different formats to just go with the intention of releasing one new format every 3 to 4 months, right? Classic mode. We've seen leaks for classic mode. Of the, 200 some thousand players that originally signed up to play for this game, do you know what a majority of them their mind process was? Oh my god, Yu-Gi-Oh! From my childhood, I'm gonna go play my Blue Eyes deck, my Dark Magician deck, whatever deck. They come in, Link summon, Synchro summon, XC summon, they get absolutely obliterated. and that's it. They just give up. They don't even try again because Yu-Gi-Oh is so alien to them from what they're used to. Even if you came in as like a Zexal baby or whatever, you came in, what XC's monsters in, you are just not ready for the current modern version of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? The only people who would be ready for the current modern version of Yu-Gi-Oh is people who've been playing from the beginning or absolute Zoomers, which is not a vast majority of Yu-Gi-Oh players. The biggest demographic of Yu-Gi-Oh players are older at this point. They have come from the Yu-Gi era, if you will, the good old season 1 era of the game, and they need to cater to those players, bring them back to the game so the game can start making money so they can do more things. I think implementing a classic format, right, that allows people to play and then just focus on getting a new format out, maybe even rotate formats every couple months. If people come back and are able to play Yu-Gi-Oh at a more basic level, monsters, back row, etc., they will be more willing to stick around. I mean, use me as an example. When I came into Duel Links, it was super, super simple. But if I came into Duel Links with current Duel Links standards, with Link monsters and Synchros and XCs, I would not have gotten into the game. I would have quit out and been like, yeah, I'm done. I can't do this. I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh! In several decades, and I can't keep up. You know what I mean? So they need to snag the biggest demographic, and I think a classic mode is the way to go. After that, they need to make the game competitive like they said they were going to do, to bring the competitive crowd back in, because all the competitive players have left at this point. And then after that is when they can look at the actual cards in the game, the best of 1, the best of 3, the ban list, all that stuff I was talking about. That can be the third priority, because that's when you have your player base. Now you can implement changes to actually make the game good, right? So, I think for the first thing they need to focus on is bringing those players back, and the best way to bring those players back, because the game is still free to play, right? There are still a few positives in the game. The game is still free to play. It's not hard to make the cards. It's not difficult to play this game at all. It's just those players that come in don't want to learn everything all up front. And if we started somewhere a little bit earlier, let's just say we did GOAT format, for example, and that was their classic mode. Oh, and put incentives in, Konami. I like the 5v5 thing would be so much more popular if people could earn gems out of it, right? If I had a way to play the original formats, because I like GOAT format or Teledad format or anything, even like up to Synchro format, I think people would be fine with. They could slowly get back into the game. And they could even play their shitty Blue Eyes or Dark Magician deck or whatever, and probably win some games and actually be excited about Master Duel instead of getting absolutely destroyed by Despia or Florandese or whatever hell else people are playing in Master Duel. So there you go. I ranted a little bit. Video went a little bit longer than expected. I apologize about that. I hope I was able to get through to you guys and just I want Master Duel to succeed. I don't want this game to fail by any capacity. I think people out there that, cheer on the failure of games, to be honest, are just kind of cringe. Like, you don't want any game to fail. You want every game to succeed, because that just breeds more competition for other Yu-Gi-Oh games. And, that's pretty much it, right? Like, the best thing to happen to Duel Links when Duel Links was dying was Master Duel coming out and being a free-to-play package and everyone leaving. Once that happened, the game got significantly better. So here's hoping that the January anniversary event is significantly better. Because right now, Master Duel is a dead game. It's not a dying game. It is a dead game. No one plays this game right now, and it is really, really terrible and very sad to see. People, I feel like most of the people online right now are bots, So there you go. Hopefully the game gets better. I'm praying for it. January event, if it's good, I'm back on board for Master Duel. Otherwise, I don't know, man. We'll have to see how Master Duel goes. Let me know down in the comments if you're still playing, what gripes you have with the game, what issues you have. I know I haven't touched on all the issues. There are several issues to go over. Maybe I'll make a follow-up video after reading some of your comments to go over some of the other things that have been bothering people in the game. But yeah, that's it from now. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. Long video for my Master Duel fan base. Peace out, boys.